All right, so let's take a look. We're looking at the last week of this unit. We're going to start with composition of transformations. Okay, so composition, basically, we're going to get things together. Then transformation, well, we're going to get transformations together. We talk about four different types of transformations. We talk translation, rotation, reflection, and annihilation. So what I'm going to be doing is basically you're going to do more than one transformation per question. That's really what we mean. Now, let me show an example, like exactly what in pictures, how does this look like? So we talk about pre-image and image. Pre-image is what we start with, and image is what we end up with. And then we saw triangles, quadrilaterals, and stuff like that. But what if I have a picture like this? Okay, so it looks like a footprint. Okay, it's a pre-image, right? That's what we start with. I can do some transformations with this. Let's say, let's play with translation, right? Translation, when I move it around, I can move it up and down, sideways, stuff like that. But let's say in this one, I only move it sideways. So let's follow this image. I'm gonna follow it sideways. Okay, you guys see, I moved it to the right. So I did one transformation, right? In this case, I did translation. But then I know another transformation we talk about, it included a mirror line. So let me imagine this line, right? And then I know reflection. Now reflection is, I imagine a mirror and I'm gonna put it on the other side of the mirror. Remember, we talk about distance. Distance on reflection, it stays the same. So I see here the big toe is close to the mirror line. So on the other side, big toe should be close to the mirror line as well. Now let me reflect this. I'm gonna get something like this. Now, for us to see where we started from, we started with this image here on the left. So we call this pre-image, right? That's what we started with. And then we did one transformation. So it will be, our numbers will be prime. So if I was following a point, let's say point A, once I do one transformation, we call it A prime. Now, when we do two transformations, in this case, I'm going to call it a double prime. Okay, so if I did three transformations, we will call this triple prime. But let's see, let's take a look at our work. Exactly how does this thing gonna look like? So I'm looking at 56. I'm gonna say according to our notes, but remember I gave you guys formulas on our notes, and then that's question number 35. So according to our notes, I see rotation 90 degrees counterclockwise about the origin. So let me zoom in here. According to our notes, 90 degrees counterclockwise, it says that XY, let me write this thing down in black. It says XY becomes negative YX. Okay, so what happens is that X and the Y, they switch places, and the value that was Y to begin with is going to become negative if it's positive. Basically switch the sign on the Y. So if it was positive to begin with, make it negative. If it was negative to begin with, make it positive. So this negative Y doesn't necessarily mean make it negative. It means switch the sign. So again, if it was positive, do switch it to negative. But if it was negative, do switch it to positive. All right, so I'm going to ask you guys on the homework for a specific point. So let's say on the homework, I ask you to follow point L. So I'm looking at point L. According to point L right now is, the coordinates are 1, 2. My first transformation, it says counterclockwise about the origin, 90 degrees counterclockwise. And it says XY becomes negative YX. So let me just say that L prime, right? My first transformation is going to be negative 2, 1. Notice the X and the Y switch places and I switch the value on the 2. Okay, that's my L prime. But on the homework, I ask you for L double prime. So I have to do a second transformation. And I see here, translation X, Y, X minus 1, and Y. Okay, so if I had figures, I can easily plot my point, right? Negative 2, 1. Can easily plot the point. Let me plot that one in here. I'm gonna say this is the point L prime. I can easily see, okay, x minus 1, that basically means 1 to the left. And then the y by itself means don't move it up or down, just 1 unit to the left. I could use the graph and I could plot it in. So that's my point L double prime. And I'm gonna say, well, the coordinates of that are -3, comma 1. Now, what if I didn't want to draw it? If I'm more like, you know what, I'm gonna do this all algebraically. I'm not gonna use graphs. What could I do in translation? Well, easy. On the x value, subtract the 1. So from -2, subtract 1. So that's how we get -3. Notice how the y did not switch. Only x minus 1. Only subtracted 1 from the x value. That's pretty much it. All right, let's take a look at another example using the same rules, okay? So let me follow a different point this time. Let's say I follow the point, I don't know, M, just to follow a point. Again, in your homework, I'm going to ask you for a point specifically. So I see point M. The coordinates of point M are 3, -2. My coordinates of F prime, right, 90 degrees counterclockwise about the origin. According to a rule, I'm going to have 2, 3. Right, positive 2, positive 3. Notice I switched the value on the 2, the sign on the 2. Now my M double prime, I'm going to do this algebraically. I know I have to subtract 1 from x. So I'm going to have my values are 1, comma 3. There's 4 choices, right? There's 4 points. There's point K, L, M, J. If we had it on paper, I will ask you guys to graph it. I will ask you guys to do all 4 points, graph it, and you can easily do it if we had it on paper. Now, because we're doing this online, I believe that 1 point is enough. If you can do 1 point, pretty sure you can do the other 3. So 1 point is enough. I'm just going to ask you for 1 point specifically, and that's it. All right, let's take a look at question number 57 here. So I have all the points here. Just to follow one, let me follow point J. Again, you can follow, as long as you can follow 1 point, I'm pretty sure you can follow all of them. The coordinates of point J are 4, 2. According to my rules here, the first transformation, it says translation, 1 unit right. So I'm thinking algebraically, 1 unit right. I'm just going to go x plus 1. Okay, so I'm going to add 1 to my x. And then it says 2 units up. Okay, so that means y plus 2. So I'm going to add 1 value to my x value, and I'm going to add 2 to my y value. So j prime, it should be 5, 4. I added 1 to x, and I added 2 to y. That's what it said. 1 unit right, 2 units up. And then my second transformation, it says reflection across y equals x. According to my notes, it says xy becomes yx. Why? That's easy. I'm just going to switch the values of x and y. So my j double prime should be 4, 5. Not bad. Right? Again, you can follow point I, you can follow point K. You can use the graph if needed. But I'm also looking at question 58. This one has no graphs, right? 58, 59, no graphs, but it's still composition of transformations. There's 2 transformations here. There's 4 points. I give you the coordinates of the 4 points. So let's say I asked you, I want to know what's a double prime. And I'm going to ask you to follow points here. So because I ask you for a double prime, I have to get a prime. But I have to do the first transformation, and then I'm going to get a double prime. I'm going to do my second transformation. So let's see. First transformation says rotation 180 degrees about the origin. According to my notes, that is xy. This thing says xy becomes -x, -y. So all I'm gonna do, I'm gonna switch the signs on X and Y. So if they were positive, make it negative. But if they were negative, make them positive. So the values of A are -2, -3. So I'm just gonna say A prime are gonna be +2, +3. And then for A double prime, I'm doing a dilation of 1.5 about the origin. Okay, so I know because my scale factor is more than 1, if I was to graph this, the image should get bigger. It's 1.5. So all I'm gonna do, I'm gonna look at my values here of A prime, and I'm gonna multiply each of my numbers. I'm gonna multiply them by 1.5. So instead of 2, 3, I get 3, comma 4.5. I multiplied each of them by the scale factor. Now, sometimes we get the scale factor as a fraction, right? I could have said the scale dilation of 3/2, right? 3/2. Sometimes we can get the scale factor as a fraction, convert the fraction to decimal. So 3/2, you just go 3 divided by 2, right? Pretty simple. So I might give it to you the scale factor as a decimal or as a fraction, but we're going to be working for the answers. We're going to be working them as a decimal. Let's try it one more time. Let's take a look now at question 59. Right, I can ask you for any point here. I got 4 choices. I could have points J, I, H, and G. First thing, let's say just to try one point, let's take a look at point J. Okay, so I need to find J prime, the first transformation. According to the first transformation, it says translation of X and Y become X plus 5, Y minus 5. Or 5 units to the right, 5 down. So all I'm gonna do in my X value, I'm gonna add 5. So instead of -3, I'm gonna write 2. Right, because I added 5 to my X value. And then on my Y value, I want to subtract 5, right? Y minus 5. So instead of 0, let me call this -5. My second transformation, it says reflection across the Y-axis. Okay, so according to our notes, reflection across the Y-axis, XY becomes -X, comma, Y. Oh, so basically I'm just going to switch the sign on the X value. So I'm going to say my J double prime is going to be -2, -5. Notice I switched the sign on the X value. Pretty simple, right? So you guys see on the questions, I'm going to ask for double primes. That means you guys are going to do 2 transformations.